Do you have advice for people who suffer from mild forms of depression or feel as they might, both for those people? And do you have advice for people who love the people who suffer from depression and want to help?
Yeah. One of the incredibly frustrating things about depression is the very nature of it makes it hard for the people who suffer to get treatment because they're hopeless, so they don't think treatment will help. They have low energy, so they're not motivated to participate in treatment in many cases. Sometimes they're actively suicidal. That certainly doesn't help. They have all these things that seem to prevent treatment from being effective. So that's where the loved ones are so important, is helping them overcome these barriers to treatment, the motivation, the safety, and the insight. That's critical, and particularly for the severe cases. For the mild cases, where people still have some insight and motivation and energy to get something done, there are many things you can do. Exercise is extremely important in mood maintenance. Regulation of sleep and getting sufficient and regular enough sleep is very important. And talk therapy can be helpful in those mild or moderate cases. Just looking at cognitions, looking at patterns of thought that people may have fallen into, where they catastrophize, where they spiral from small things into big things. A little bit of talk therapy, 10, 12 sessions, can help people identify those patterns they may have in themselves that are taking occasional negative thoughts, which everybody has, and magnifying those into more persistent negative states. If you work at this, and it's kind of like homework, this is what we call cognitive behavioral therapy. It's very structured, very organized. You work hard. It requires insight and motivation, and you have to be motivated. But if you are, then you can identify these triggers that send you down particular pathways and work to intercept them. And that is amazingly very effective in mild to moderate cases.
So you're basically have to train yourself to see the world as a collection of triggers. And you have to first understand, like collect the data, like basically see every experience as a thing that creates a follow-on emotion or a feeling. Like I've learned this, like on social media, where like early on, like all of us, I'll say something, I kind of respond to negativity with negativity, and then you observe the result of that. And
That's
then
more negativity.
over time, you think, wait a minute, this thing that I've been doing where when somebody says you suck and you say, no, you suck, that never produces the result you thought it might.
No.
And so might not want to just don't say you suck back. And I do this through a lot of things in life. I'm very fortunate to not suffer from depression, but I, first of all, I have had and have people in my life who do. And also, all of us have depression who don't suffer from depression, have depression out. Like, it's always knocking on the door.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so you have mild, if you're very careless with the triggers all around you, then you're just, I think all of us have the capacity to really suffer from that kind of chemical or psychological or philosophical existential crisis.
But then it raises a question: why are we built this way? It seems like it doesn't make sense, right? And here's where some of this thinking about where we came from as the human family is kind of interesting. It doesn't make sense that somewhere on that spectrum, that it's good to detect that there's an array of adverse forces out there in the world right now at this moment, and to withdraw, to hunker down, to not fight, not strive, not try to meet the challenge, and outweight these negative forces that are present out there. And that makes a lot of sense. And all animals that have been studied in one form or another show this. Even the worm that I mentioned earlier, C. elegans with 302 neurons, it can effectively give up in challenging situations. We've done this with zebrafish, tiny little transparent fish. You can give them a challenging situation and they will give up. But then if you stimulate a couple very specific brain regions in particular ways, you can motivate them to overcome the challenge. And if you inhibit those regions, they give up much more easily than they would otherwise. You can do this in mice. You can do this in rats. So this is an ancestral conserved pattern to detect that things are pretty bad out there and to conserve energy, to hunker down, to wait out the storm.
Says use, unfortunately, many of our maladies have useful roots in our that contribute to our survival. So both depression and motivation have uses.
Yeah.
And in sometimes it's nice to just shut the hell up and huddle with the penguins,
Right.
Versus for some unknown reason venture out on your own into the mountains like a David Goggins type character.